Hi, I'm Mr. Post, and in this lesson you'll see how to use some Hefty styrofoam bowls as a slump mold so that the kids in your art class can create functional bowls that they can use and eat from every day. If you're going to be making a round bowl in clay, it helps to start out with a round slab. So what I like to do is just kind of tap my clay slab into a round form, squeezing it so that I've got generally a round shape before I start rolling it out. Then what you do is you put it down on your canvas and you want to do CPR. That's where you put one hand on top of the other while you're standing and push, just like you see people doing CPR on television in the movies. And this helps to flatten the clay out a little bit. Then take this clay, lift it up, flip it over, and then do a little more CPR on it. This gets you pretty close to a nice flat clay slab to start. Then you set your two sticks next to this, and right on top of this you're going to roll with your rolling pin just back and forth. You don't have to get all the rolling done in one shot. You can move the rolling pin out of the way, lift the clay slab up. You'll see how much moisture has come out of the clay and gone onto the canvas. And so when you lift the clay slab, what it does is it makes it easier to roll it out a little bit more. So you put the clay slab back down, roll it out again, and so what you end up with is a flat clay slab, and you can tell that it's flat because you can hear the sound of the rolling pin on top of these sticks. The next part of this process is to get this clay slab into the bowl. And so you gently lift your clay slab up and set it on top of your bowl. Now you just can't push right in the middle, because if you do that you'll tear a hole. So you have to use what I call the pie crust method. And that's where you lift up the clay slab around the edges and just push it down just a little bit at a time into the middle of the styrofoam bowl. So you're lifting and gently pushing, lifting and gently pushing, and at no point are you trying to push the entire thing in all at once. You're kind of just gently lifting and turning. If you have to go around the bowl a couple of times, that's fine. Once you've got it in there pretty nicely, what you do is you take your top hand and hold the clay in while you take your bottom hand and flip it over. And so then what we're going to use is our pin tool, which is a paper clip that has been held onto a popsicle stick with some electrical tape, and we're going to hold this straight up. You don't want this at an angle, you don't want it going sideways. You want this to go right around the clay bowl so that you can cut with this perfectly straight up and down, perpendicular. And then when you get to the end, just cut a little exit and save your extra clay in a lump, because we're going to use this in a minute to test out some of the designs that we're going to stamp into the clay. So once you've got this done, you can take your entire canvas mat, flip it over, and now you've got a clay bowl slumped into a mold. The next step in this process is smoothing out the rim of the bowl. It would be great if I could just use my fingers and go around and smooth this bowl like this, but I can't. It doesn't work very effectively. So the trick is to take a household sponge, moisten it, and then make your fingers into that same kind of position and then just gently go around the bowl, and you're just rounding off this top curve. What I have in my hand are a bunch of bisque stamps. What they are is I took some clay, rolled it into either coils or cut some slabs into little rectangular pieces, and then I took plastic toys, wood toys, any little doodads my son had in his toy box, and I stamped them into the ends of the clay and then fired them. So that's why they're called bisque stamps. They've been bisqued one time in the bisque kiln. And so these make great little textures when you push these bisque stamps into wet clay. And so what I have the kids do at this point is go through the process of testing these out, finding out which stamps they're attracted to, which ones they like, which ones they think will make an interesting design on their bowl. And so having the extra clay that we cut from the rim gives you a place to test the stamps out, find out which ones you like, which ones you'd like to use. One of the things that I want to caution you that can happen is this. If you press very lightly, you won't get much of a stamp. And so when we cover the bowl with glaze, the glaze will fill that in and it won't work. The other thing that can happen is if you push way too hard, and you'll create a deep hole into the clay, and then what happens when you go to glaze that is air gets trapped in there. The glaze doesn't go into where the stamp is, and so then you end up with a miss. So one of the things you're testing as you're doing this process is seeing just how much pressure you need to apply with the bisque stamp to clay in order to make an imprint. To make these stamps go into the clay, it helps to put your hand on the outside of the bowl underneath so that as you push into the clay, there's some support underneath there, because without that support, there's not enough resistance from the bowl for the stamp decoration to really show up. So right now I'm going around the bowl, leaving a little space in between each one of these stamps. And what this creates is kind of a wavy pie crust edge around the edge of the bowl. This is my favorite look for doing this, having just some simple stamps going around the edge. But sometimes kids like to push it a little farther than that. And so what they'll do is they'll come back in and they'll choose a second stamp to go in the middle of the first ones. And typically what happens at this point is that you lose that pie crust edge, which is okay. It's just a different looking bowl when they're done. But sometimes kids fall so much in love with the texture that they really want to have a lot of decoration on theirs, and it's just a personal choice. So now we've got a bowl that's got an alternating pattern going around it. Sometimes kids love texture so much they want to make a bowl that ends up not being functional at all. And so they'll want to texture the bottom and the sides. One of the things I tell them about this is that think about how a spoon is going to go across this bowl. If you're eating your cereal out of the bottom of this bowl and the spoon rides across the bottom, it's going to make a noise like brrrr, like a jackhammer running across cement. If the kids are only planning on using this bowl for candy or for potato chips or for eating something that's not going to have a spoon involved, then by all means feel free. So they choose their own definition of what's functional, and so when they do the decorative stamps that go across the bottom, I tell them that if they're going to do that, it works best if they go in a circular pattern following the motif of a bowl. So working their way out in rings as they go instead of just randomly stamping little stamps all over the bottom of it. But when you're 10 years old and just enjoying the process of stamping, I try not to rein them in too much and let them make a bowl that they're proud of. But the nice thing about this lesson is that it gives you a kid a chance to make something functional that will hold up in the dishwasher, in the microwave if you've chosen an appropriate clay for that, and an appropriate glaze. And so then they get to use something that they've created every day. Now at the end of this lesson, some of the kids ask, hey, can I take this bowl out right now and set it on the counter so that it'll hold its shape? And the answer is no. Because this bowl, the only thing holding it together right now is this styrofoam mold. And the great thing about styrofoam is that it lets air come through from behind. And so this will dry overnight into a bone-dry bowl. This bowl has been drying for a day now, and so it's very easy to just put your hand over the top, lift off the styrofoam bowl from the back. The kid's name should be inside the bowl on a piece of paper. You can take that out and then use some black iron oxide or some red iron oxide or black underglaze, and you just write the student's name onto the bottom of the bowl with a brush along with the class code, and then after these finish drying, they're ready to go in the bisque kiln. Thanks for watching. Go make something, and I'll see you soon.